Hi everyone, Rabbi David Tawil here from Mishna Study, Masechet Shevuot, Perek Zayin, Mishnah Aleph. We've been talking about Shevuot Mideoraita in cases of Modeh B'Miktzat and others. In most cases that we've discussed so far, the one who does the swear is exempt from having to pay. In this Mishnah, we discuss issues which are the reverse, where the one who swears can actually collect payment because of the swear. Let's begin Mishnah Aleph. Kol HaNishba'in Shebat Torah, in all examples of oaths taken according to the Torah, Nishba'in velo meshalnemin. The person who offers the swear, who takes on the oath, does not have to pay. However, the Mishnah now lists several people that it's the opposite. Ve'elu nishba'in v'notlin. The following is a list of people who swear and then collect payment based on their swear. Before we read that list, the Bartenura points out, Kol nishba'im nishba'im velo mashlimim, lo meshalnemim. They swear and they don't pay. The Torah did not establish that the tovea, the one who's making the accusation, the one accusing them, the prosecutor, excuse me, right? The tovea, he should not be able to shavav litol. If he's making an accusation, he should not be able to swear and collect payment. Ela la nitba. The swear is to the one who's being accused, the defendant. Sheishba velo yishalem, that he should swear and he doesn't have to pay. Tichtiv, as the pasuk says, "V'rakach be'alav v'lo yishalem." The owner takes it and doesn't pay. Misha alav l'shalem hu nishba. The one who has the responsibility to pay, he is the one who takes the oath. In other words, if he doesn't wish to take the oath, then he'll have to pay. If he swears and takes the oath, then he doesn't have to pay. That's the standard practice. However, as we noted, the Mishnah lists several people who it's not that way. Who are some of those people? Back to the Mishnah. Has-Sakhir, a hired worker who claims that his wages were not paid by his employer. Vehan-Nigzal, one who was robbed and is suing the person who he believed robbed him. Vehan-Nihbal, one who was damaged by somebody else. Veshekenegdo hashud ala shivua, in any situation where a person is in a dispute with somebody else, and really the other person should swear, the problem is he is not a trustworthy person in the court of law. He's perhaps lied under oath in past examples. He's someone who is not a viable witness because he commits transgressions according to the laws of the Torah, and so on and so forth. So if a person is in a dispute with somebody who's not trustworthy to take an oath according to halakha, immediately the oath will reverberate back to the other person. And the final example is v'hachenvani al pinkaso, a storekeeper who was relying on his pinkas, on his ledger, is also able to take the oath. The Mishnah is now going to go through each of these examples and explain to us what the case is, and on many of them we'll have mahlokot between the hachamim. We start with the sakhir. Has-sakhir ketzad. What is an example? What is the case of the hired worker who takes on an oath and can collect money based on his oath? Amar lo ten li sechari sheyesh li biyadecha. A worker comes to his employer and says, "Give me my wages that you are withholding from me." Hu omer natati. The employer says, "I already paid you out." Vehala omer, and to which the worker, who is the prosecutor over here, responds, "Lo natalti. I never took any wages from you." So the sakhir is the prosecutor. He's claiming money that the employer owes to him. He's the tovea, and the employer is the nitba. Typically, like we said, the nitba would swear and get out of it. However, here the Mishnah tells us, hu nishba v'notel. The sakhir, the one who is the worker, actually can take the oath and collect the money based on his oath. The question is, why did the rabbis make this as an exception? Explains Bartenura, Tiknu lo hachamim li shavav v'litol. The hachamim established that in this case, the worker can take on the oath and collect the money. Because the Baal Habayit, the employer, is burdened with the needs of all of his workers, and as a result, he will not remember. In other words, the employer is in charge of his business, he's in charge of all his workers, he's in charge of his customers, he has a tremendous amount on his head, and therefore the likelihood is that he probably forgot. Even though he's claiming I paid him out, he has so many other things on his mind, the chances are that he forgot. The sakhir is more likely telling the truth if he claims that he didn't get his wages because he's in charge of one thing only. He does his work, he collects his money. He doesn't worry about all of the other things that are going on. And so because the Baal Habayit is tarud, we give the opportunity for the sakhir to offer the oath and collect the money because that's more likely the truth than it is in the reverse case. We don't want to give the Baal Habayit to swear in a situation where he's probably not confident in that swear because of all the other things that are going on. We'll continue reading Bartenura in just a moment as he brings in Okimta in this case. But that's the approach of Tanakama, that the Sachir can go ahead and claim his money and take on an oath and collect in full. Rabbi Yehuda, however, says we're still going to follow the same practices of Modeh b'miktzat. The only time a person can collect via an oath is if there was a Modeh b'miktzat case. And so Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ad sheteheh sham miktzat hoda'ah. Rabbi Yehuda says here too there needs to be some level of admission in this case. Ketzad, how does that work? Amar lo ten li sechari 50 dinar sheyesh li biyadecha. The worker comes and says, give me my wages that are 50 dinarim that you have withheld for me. Vehu omer, and to which the employer responds, Hitkabalta dinar zahav. You already accepted a dinar zahav. A dinar zahav is a smaller amount of the 50 dinar. A dinar zahav is worth the equivalent of 25 dinare kesef. So he's claiming you owe me 50 dinare kesef, 50 silver dinarim, to which the employer responds, I already paid you 25 silver dinarim, the worth of a dinar zahav, so therefore I only owe you a portion of it. It's in that case, says Rabbi Yehuda, that the Sachir can take an oath and collect. However, if the Baal HaBayit denies it outright, that is not a Modeh b'miktzat case, and therefore there is no Shevuot deoraita that can be administered here in order for the Sachir to be able to collect. Here, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Bartenura notes at en halacha ki Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda, nor will it follow Rabbi Yehuda in the next several cases of nigzal, of one who's robbed, or nehbal, one who's damaged, where there too we will see that Rabbi Yehuda will debate, and we'll mention those, each one in its place. Just to go back to the Bartenura's commentary on when the sachir, the hired worker, can take an oath and collect. Says Bartenura, hanemile keshetov'o bizmano. This is only the case when the sachir, the hired worker, is accusing the employer of withholding his wages bizmano, at the time period that he is obligated to pay. For example, sachir yom zemana kol halayla she'acharav. Someone who is a hired worker during the day, he has the opportunity to collect the following night. The sachir layla, someone who's a night worker, zmano kol hayom she'acharav. He gets his wages the following day. So the only time the sachir is believed to take on an oath and collect is if he accuses the employer of his payment at the proper time, bizmano. Aval teva'o le'achar zeman. But if he comes 3 weeks later and says, by the way, you never paid me for that work that I did 3 weeks ago, Baal Habayit nishba heset shepera'o v'niftar. The Baal Habayit is granted the opportunity to do a Shevuot heset that he paid him, and he is therefore exempt. Because since we're already beyond the statute of time to which the Sachir can claim his money, we don't assume that the Sachir has that leg up in remembering any more than the Baal Habayit does because of how much time has passed. Additionally, says Bartenura, if the worker was hired without witnesses, then also the Sachir does not have the ability to swear and collect. Because in that situation, the Baal HaBayit could say, I never hired you to do anything, right? He doesn't have witnesses that testify that he was hired. So therefore, the Baal HaBayit has the right to say, well, guess what? I never hired you at all. He has a migo, right? Remember the concept of migo is he has a better claim that would get him out of it. So he can come and claim, I never hired you to begin with. The fact that he tells you, look, I know I hired you, but I paid you already. The fact that he gives him that claim and at least admits to that is something that we then trust the Baal HaBayit. Therefore, I rented you, I hired you, but I already paid you out. So we would need to have two conditions for the Sachir to swear and collect. One is that he's being tovea him at the proper zman, and number two is that the original hiring was done in front of witnesses, to which then the Baal HaBayit does not have the claim of, I never hired you in the first place. Last Bartenura that we'll read, Hu omer natati aval amar lo shnaim katzatzta li, v'hu omer lo katzatzti lecha ela ehad. The case is a situation where they're arguing about the payout of the wages, not that they're arguing on what the wage was originally. So here the Sachir they both agree, the Baal HaBayit and the Sachir, that the contract called for $100, let's say. The debate here is, did I pay you already? Did I pay you a part? Or so on and so forth. Says Bartenura, but let's say there's a dispute about what the wage was to begin with. The worker comes and claims you hired me for $100, to which the Baal Habayit says, no, I only agreed to pay you $50. So there is now a dispute about what the wage was originally, not about whether they were paid out. In such a situation, says Baratinura, Nishba Baal Habayit Shevuat Torah. There the oath goes to the Baal Habayit because we assume that he knows what he would have hired him for. He gets to have the Shevuat Torah because he's the defendant. As we know, typically the Shevuat goes to the defendant. And then he only has to pay what he agreed, what he said was the amount that that they agreed to originally. So here we're talking very specific about a wage dispute, meaning did I pay the wages or not, under the case of hiring with witnesses and being tovea at the proper time. Any other situation, the Shevuah is going to revert back to the Baal Habayit and he will be exempt from paying.